ॐ अज्ञानतिमिरन्धस्य ज्ञानञ्जनशलाकया चक्षुरुन्मिलितं येन तस्मै श्रीगुरुवे नमः। नमो ॐ विष्णुपादाय कृष्णपृष्ठाय भूतले श्रीमते भक्तिवेदान्तस्वामिन् इति नामिने। नमस्ते सरस्वते देवे गौरवाणी प्रचारिणे निर्विशेषा शून्यवादी पाश्चात्यदेशतारिणे। जय श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैत गदाधर श्रीवासदि गौरभक्तवृंद। हरे कृष्णा कृष्ण कृष्ण हरे हरे, हरे राम 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 हरे हरे। So here characteristics of water is being described. The most prominent feature, characteristic of water is taste. That we saw ether or sky, which is called kham. The most prominent characteristic is sound, shabda. Then from sky air is produced, and the most prominent characteristic of air is touch. There are other characteristics also described. So for space also we saw other characteristics are also described. We learnt about that. About touch sensation, varieties of characteristics were described. Then from air, fire is produced. The characteristics of fire, most important is form and then other things. It can dry up things. There is a fire in the stomach also, which helps in digestion. All those things also are the different other characteristics of fire. Then from fire, water is produced. This is what now we are seeing. And from water, earth will be produced. Most prominent characteristic of water is rasa, taste. That is what we are discussing. Then from water, land or earth is produced. And the most important characteristic is gandha, smell. So this is what we have been seeing. So in today's verse, what is described is the different characteristics of water. So beginning with, in the previous verse if you see, taste is the most important characteristic of water. The taste of water is the original taste. That's why when you are thirsty, nothing else can satisfy you. It's the water which satisfies. But then, when water is mixed with other substances, then other tastes are produced. Like kashayaha, that is astringent taste. Madhura, sweet taste. Tiktaha, bitter taste. Katu, pungent. Amalaha, sour taste. So like this, varieties of tastes are produced. And it is said that Generally for good digestive system in our food, the combination of these tastes should be there. That's why when we serve prasadam, you'll find there is sweet, there is sour taste, salty taste, little bitterness, all these things are there. So these are the varieties of characteristics of taste. Then the other characteristics of water are described. Just like the other characteristics of fire were described, it can help in digestion and it can dry up things, all those things were described. What all water can do is being described. So, kledanam, so we know it can moisten other substances. You put water in mud, then you can mold the mud into varieties of form. And water is the most important ingredient in cooking also. If you want to make some dough, you have to put water. You have to dampen it, moisten it, and then you can make varieties of things. Any other different kinds of varieties of cooking we do, water is definitely required. Then, pindanam, it coagulates varieties of mixtures. And very important, pranana, water is considered to be very important to maintain life. Just like breathing, air is important. Similarly, water is very important. And that's how we find even the scientists acknowledge this. And they are looking for water in different planets to see if life exists. According to them, if water is there, life must be there. So, that is said in the Vedas also. Apo mayaha pranaha. That means life definitely in material world depends on water. So that is another characteristic of water. Then apayana, refreshing. When we are very tired, when we have lost some energy, when we are fasting, Prabhupada says, even if a person has been fasting from food for many days, just little water if you take, you will feel refreshed. It is so refreshing. You can imagine. All of you must have observed that when we are fasting, and after that you drink little water, you feel so refreshing. So that is another very important thing. Undanam, it makes the things soften. Tapa apanodaha, drives away heat. Right? Anything is very hot. Let us say if there is fire, we put water. Correct. If your vessel in kitchen is very hot, what do? You put some water on that. It becomes cool. It drives away heat. That is another important this thing. And then bhuyastvam ambhasaha, being in abundance. So Prabhupada says, incessantly supplying, so much abundance of water is there, especially in the reservoirs, like in ocean, right? Even scientists say that maximum of this planet is filled with water. So much of abundance of water is there. And that refreshing, Prabhupada says, is by slackening thirst. So that is also very important. So one of the most important thing, if you try to understand in this verse, Prabhupada says is, everything is satisfying. Just like when you are very thirsty and you drink water, you feel that satisfaction. And if you see, this satisfaction comes from being in contact with Krishna. Because it is linked to the Supreme Lord, it gives satisfaction. Krishna says that in Bhagavad Gita. Rasoham apsu kaunteya. The satisfaction which you derive by drinking water, Krishna says that satisfaction is me. That taste, that quenching of your thirst which you derive by drinking water, Krishna says that is me. So, the most important thing Prabhupada says is, our satisfaction can factually be obtained only with things which are in relation with Krishna. This is what we have to understand. Anything which is cut off from Krishna cannot give you satisfaction. The same matter, when it is cut off from the Supreme Lord and you try to enjoy that, it will not give you satisfaction. And the same matter, when we understand its relation with Krishna, it gives satisfaction. So the central principle is, it is satisfying if it is in relation with Krishna. It is not satisfying if it is not in relation with Krishna. In the beginning of Srimad Bhagavatam, when Shaunakadi Rishis, they are hearing Srimad Bhagavatam from Suta Goswami, and when they are inquiring about varieties of topics, they always try to bring in this point that please explain this if this is in relation with Krishna. See, even if they are asking about the history of some king, even if they want to know the dynasties, how they appeared, how they disappeared, even if they want to know about varieties of life in different planets, they are saying that explain if it is in relation with Krishna. Because that is the central principle of satisfaction. Yayatma suprasidati. Atma, the spirit soul, can be completely satisfied only if it is in relation with Krishna. That's how we find that actually spirit means life, matter means dead. Why dead thing is not satisfying? Because there is no life in it. So, if devotees understand this principle, that actually the holy name of Krishna is completely conscious. It is life. It is not dead sound. Then we will start relishing. If we simply take it as some material sound, you cannot relish. So this has to be understood. Nama Chintamani Krishna Chaitanya Rasa Vigraha. The holy name of the Lord, Nama Chintamani, it has got all the qualities of spirit. And it is Chintamani. It is like a touchstone. So, all kinds of necessities we may have, all kinds of desires we may have, everything can be supplied if we simply chant the holy name of the Lord. Nama Chintamani, Chaitanya, and it is life. It is not a material sound which is dead. So this is what we have to understand. Nama Chintamani Krishna Chaitanya Rasa Vigraha. And it is reservoir of all spiritual pleasures. The holy name of the Lord. So, this is what we have to understand. Similarly, the Vigrahas of the Lord, one side, if we have not developed devotion, we may take it as some material, some metal. On the other hand, if we have developed love for the Lord, then we understand it is a mercy form of the Lord. And the Lord being very, very merciful and compassionate, He takes a form in which we can relate with Him. Anoraniyam Mahato Mahyam. Krishna can become bigger than the biggest. And if He becomes bigger than the biggest, you cannot do anything. You cannot serve Him. When Krishna showed His Virata form to Arjuna, Arjuna was frightened. Isn't it? And in what way we can serve? If we want to offer something to the Virat form, you cannot satisfy the Virat form. Unlimited mouths. Isn't it? Unlimited. How much you can supply? Unlimited dimension. What cloth you can supply? What offerings you can give? Cannot. So mercifully the Lord takes the form which we can relate as Archa Vigraha. So, this is what we have to understand. The same sound in relation with the Supreme Lord is holy name, and the same sound which is devoid of Krishna consciousness becomes the cause of bondage in this material world. Same activities, same things, what we perform in this material world, for our satisfaction becomes the cause of bondage and suffering, miserable life. And the same thing done for Krishna becomes the cause of liberation from this material world. So whether it is the holy name, whether it is the deities, whether it is the activities, whether it is material, any material substance, the same matter becomes a temple when it is done in the service of the Lord. And the same material becomes some skyscraper building for our sense enjoyment, when we do it for our sense enjoyment. So, the most important process is linking with the Supreme Lord. If it is in connection, if it is in relation with the Supreme Lord, it gives satisfaction. Prabhupada quotes a verse from Dhruva Maharaj. Dhruva Maharaj had unlimited desires. So many desires he had. Such a big desire he had. He wanted something more than even Brahma. See. But after seeing the Supreme Lord, he says, Swamin Krithartosmi Varam Nayache, completely satisfied. So satisfaction, otherwise even if his desire was satisfied, there was no question that he would have been satisfied. But just the glimpses of the Lord satisfied him. So devotees should understand, nothing in this material world can actually give me satisfaction if it is cut off from the Lord, and anything in the material world can be satisfying if it is in connection with the Lord. That is the most important principle which Srila Rupa Goswami has given in Krishna consciousness. Devotee is ready to accept anything in relation with Krishna, even wealth. He is ready to accept. But if it is in relation with Krishna. Otherwise, for his own sense gratification, whatever is necessary apart from that, a devotee is not interested. So, this is a very important principle. Another important thing which Prabhupada points out from this purport, from this verse, is Tapa apanodaha. Water is known for driving away tapa, heat. So Prabhupada very nicely points out in his lecture, this tapa is the feature of this material existence. Just like characteristic of water is driving away tapa, characteristic of material world is tapa. Just like in Bhagavad Gita, Krishna describes the characteristic of material existence. Dukhalyam, ashashvatam. This is characteristic of material world. It is a place of misery. It is temporary. So, one of the features of this material world, why it is dukhalyam? It is because of everything in this material world is miserable. This material world is meant for living entities who have no relation with the Supreme Lord, who have desires to be separate from the Supreme Lord. That's why it is miserable. Same thing. Anything in relation with Krishna will be satisfying. Anything cut off from Krishna is only a cause of misery. So this material existence is not Vaikuntha. It is Kuntha. It is meant for giving suffering. Just like in a state, the prison house is made in such a way to give suffering. Isn't prison house, it is made in such a way to give suffering. You won't find prison house made with AC and nice furnishing with sofas and everything so that you can relax. Then everybody will think better we'll go to prison house. Isn't it? So, this material world, that is how it is made. Because it is meant for living entities to satisfy their perverted desires. So that is why it is Dukhalyam. But the devotees know the art how to utilize everything, even matter, in service of Krishna. And then it becomes Vaikuntha. Because matter, its original characteristic is spirit. Nothing is material. It is not material for Krishna. It is matter for us. So, it regains its original quality when it is utilized in service of the Lord. That is what we have to understand. So, in that sense, a devotee does not have to search for Vaikuntha. When his consciousness is completely absorbed in Krishna through direct process of devotional service and by dovetailing process of devotional service, then he can be completely Krishna conscious, even though he may be in the material world. Direct process of Krishna consciousness is by chanting the holy name, Shravanam, Kirtanam, Vishnu Smaranam, Padasevanam. And dovetailing process is that all the material necessities, whatever is there, all that is matter which binds us, under the guidance of the spiritual master, even our desires, even our different material talents which we may have, everything can be dovetailed in the service of the Lord. And gradually, that will purify our existence. And then, once our existence is purified, then it is Vaikuntha. So, there is a verse in the Vedic literature which explains how this material world is another tapa. There it says, Tapam vindanti maithunam agaram. This material world, which is a world of sense gratification, maithunam agaram. Agaram means it is a prison house of maithuna, prison house of lusty desire, prison house of sex enjoyment, prison house of our perverted desires. It is nothing but tapa. And the same Halladini Shakti of the Lord, it is tapakari in the material world. Chaitanya Charitamrita describes that pleasure-giving potency of the Supreme Lord takes the form of tapakari, takes the form of external energy of the Lord. This is also energy of the Lord. But it takes that form for living entities to give him miseries. You see. So Prabhupada defines that, Prabhupada explains. He says, he gives the example. This material world is called Durga. Durga means, that is the symbol of Durga. You have seen Prabhupada gives the example. She is killing Mahisasura with the trident in her hand. So Prabhupada says, this is for tapakari, for giving problem. That Trishul is for giving problem. And what is that Trishula? Threefold material problems. What is that? Adi Bhautik, Adi-Devik, Adi-Atmik. These three folds, material miseries, combined with fourfold material existence, Janma, Mrityu, Jara, Vyadhi, only source of giving problem in the material world. So this is how this material world is. And same tapa, Prabhupada explains, if you make it into tapa, then you can come out of this material existence. Prabhupada says the same. The word tapa also comes from tapa, but that is voluntarily taking some miserable condition of life, voluntarily accepting some unfavorable condition of life, just to tolerate this material existence. Then, with that tapa, one can purify his existence and he can come out of this material world. It is possible. So, this is very instructive, and Prabhupada explains why this material existence is tapakari for materialistic people, but it changes, it gives up its hold when we surrender to the Lord. This is because that is the work which is actually given to Maya. Maya is nothing but a servant of the Lord. And it is a service which Maya does in this material world by punishing the living entity so that they can come to their senses. Just like the police department, it gives trouble to the criminals to bring them to a saner section so that they can become sane in their life. So, the reason for that is our desire to lord it over the material nature. This mentality, if we change, now we are trying to lord over, but in reality, we are completely under the subjugation of Maya. We are serving the orders of Maya. The same mind, thousands and thousands and thousands of desires. Goswami means, or Swami means, one who has learned to control his desires, one who has learned to control his mind. That is the meaning of Goswami or Swami. And otherwise, we are all Godasas. Simply, in the namesake, we are thinking, I am the master. But actually, we have become servant of our senses, servant of lust, servant of all our perverted desires. So this mentality we have to change. So when we give up this desire of lording it over, then automatically all these different kinds of material miseries will stop. That's why that famous verse in Bhagavad Gita, which explains what can bring about real peace. Bhoktaram yagna tapasam sarva loko maheshwaram. See, we are trying to take the role of the Supreme Lord. I am the proprietor. Krishna is saying, no. Understand, I am the proprietor. Sarva loko maheshwaram. I am the enjoyer. We are thinking. Krishna is saying, no. Try to understand. Supreme Lord is the enjoyer. We are thinking, I will do best for the living entities. We have to understand, Krishna is the best friend of all living entities. Suhradam sarva bhutanam. Krishna says, Gnatva mam. When one understands this in relation with me, Shantim richati. That can bring about real peace in life. So that is the process of Krishna consciousness. Understanding everything in relation with Krishna, and that can bring about real satisfaction for the soul. Otherwise, if it is not linked, whether it is water, whether it is fire, whether it is all these material elements, can bring about satisfaction only in relation with Krishna, otherwise not. So we'll stop with this. Granth Raj Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai, Jagat Guru Srila Prabhupada ki